Good evening, everybody. My name is David Banks, and this will be my weekly presentation. This week, I will be going over local storage and how that functions on the website that I have created. So I hope you'll enjoy. Let me share my screen and we will get started. So as you can see here, to start out with, I'll show you the web page real fast that we'll be working on. If you want to follow along for any reason, my URL is marvelcomicsuniverse.com/model/login.html. Or if you need to, you can go to marvelcomicsuniverse.com and simply click on the login button. So as you can see, what I have here is the create an account. This isn't technically a login screen yet, but what this is simulating is how you might administer or look at the back end of a user list using only local storage on a web browser instead of putting it in a database. So we'll be adding a few username and passwords down here, and we'll be going through the code to explain exactly what's going on. So let's go to the code. Up here we have our normal HTML stuff, login-JS, which is the JavaScript we'll get into in a little bit. I've got two CSS files, our main file and a login file. The login has to do with the outlay of the actual create an account box and the password list that you can maintain and manipulate. And the main CSS is simply the background, header, and color scheme of generally the web page. So without getting too far into that, let's keep on going because we've been over that before. So now we get to the actual create an account area. So as you can see, we have a div tag here called play area that is over here. I believe actually in the main.css. I'm not going to go in there right now, but that's basically the container that this is in. So these two right here are subcontainers of what you can't see right here in the actual code because it's a black background. So anyway, I've created a table, and in that table there's a few different options. There's two inputs, so username and password right up here, these two labels, and down here there are two inputs for a button. One is save and one is remove. So let's simulate thus far if we were going to be creating an account, what it would look like. So we'll create an account called dbanks, and we'll make the password test123. All right, so now I've typed my username and password. Well, what happens next? So the save button that we see right here takes it and saves it into our list. So if we go over to our JavaScript, we see that we have a function called save username password. So we have two different forms. One is the name and one is the password or data in this instance. And the local storage actually takes those two items and programmatically calls them name and data, and then we'll store them. The way it does this is, if we come back over to our HTML page, on click it runs that command, and it then takes those and inputs them into the list below. And if we come back over to our JavaScript file, we see this is where the local storage is actually doing that. Excuse me. This function called combine functions checks the browser for this variable list, which if we look over in our login page is right here, which is the second table listed where our username and password list actually is. Excuse me. We go back over here. So our variable is name and value. And we've created a couple of other variables, and one being I. So for I, which is equal to 0, we're going to take the local storage and we're going to add that. That's what this I plus right here, I plus 1, under each username that we create. And once that's done, in the inner HTML, that's referenced as list, which we just went over, just verifying under this table ID. And it actually adds it into there using this program that I've written. So this is an if statement. So all of this first is if. The else statement is cannot store username and password as your browser does not support local storage. This should not be a problem for most modern browsers. They do support local storage. So let's go through that process one more time just so that you can see there'll be a list building here. I'm going to do sbanks, which is my wife's name, and we'll do test 1, 2, 3, 4 to differentiate. So as you can see, it adds it in. We can do jbanks and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. We can do as many iterations of that as we need to. All right, so once that's done, all of this is now saved in local storage. As we just talked about, this if statement right here begins taking them and putting them in the list, which is referred to in the HTML table as list. So we now have a list of username and passwords. So there are now two ways that you can clear names off of this or usernames off of this. One, if you want to just take one off, we'll go back to sbanks and test 1, 2, 3, 4, and we remove that. It removes it from local storage because we have defined it. Same thing with dbanks. Test 1, 2, 3. Remove that. The way this happens is we go over here to our JavaScript with the remove button, and it does just the opposite. It combines the functions, and this time instead of doing our I++, it does our local storage -1. As you can see here, it says variable name and our user pass, which is the name of the variable I've chosen here, and our forms local storage dot remove item dot so remove name. So when that removes the name, it also removes the data with it because the data is, or the value, the password is connected with that. So that's how it's able to remove that username if you just need a one-time instance. The last but not least option is the clear all. So if we come to the HTML code, we see that the button is called clear, and on click it runs what's called clear all. So here's the clear button. I'm not going to press it just yet, but I will in just a minute. We come over here to our login.js, or .js, and we see clear all is simply a local storage.clear and runs combine the functions again. So the combine the functions, as you remember, is back down here, and it lists whatever information is left in there. So if we clear it and it's still running combine functions, what that means is it's going through to make sure there's no usernames left to actually display. So we'll go ahead and click that now. We click clear, and it empties all of the username and passwords that we have added. So that in a nutshell is local storage. As you can see, it takes the name and the data, in this case the password, and stores it. It can also clear it, and can also modify it. Or sorry, excuse me, it can also remove it. So that's all I have for this evening. Thank you for joining me, and have a good night.